Now, if you're like me and you played too many grand strategy games in your formative years, then you had the thought, this kinging business is easy. If I had absolute power, I could do so much good, I certainly wouldn't become a tyrant. This is the Eisen Tyrant, and today we are going to talk about tyranny. Modern people have a really clear negative connotation with tyrants. They are oppressive, cruel usurpers who rule with an iron fist. However, that negative connotation was not always present. The word tyrant was coined by the ancient Greeks, and at the start of their brief and lethal affair with absolutism, tyrant meant simply an absolute ruler who came to power unconstitutionally. But that did not make a tyrant evil. What made them evil was all the murder. Let's walk through some examples. To start, as we must at the start, we traveled to Lydia in southwestern Turkey. Herodotus, the father of lies, tells us that the king of Lydia was so convinced of his wife's absolute perfect beauty that he snuck a man named Gyges into her bedroom to prove it. Quite frankly, the queen had a level-headed reaction to discovering the royally appointed peeping Tom. The queen tells Gyges that she could kill him, or Gyges could help her kill the king. Gyges chose the latter and became the new king. Actually, according to Plato, Gyges was a farmer who found a magic ring that granted him invisibility. Ladies love a man with invisibility, so he seduces the queen, murders the king, and the rest is history. Oh my god, it's Nicholas of Damascus with the steel chair. According to Nicholas, Gyges was a military officer who the queen accused of improper advances, so naturally he murdered the king in self-defense and claimed the throne. Now, dear listener, you can pick which of those is your favorite, but regardless, Gyges became the first tyrant in 680 BCE, a usurper who held absolute power. Gyges enjoyed the support of the Assyrian Empire, which allowed him to bully his neighbors with impunity until he stabbed the Assyrians in the back by supporting Egypt. Then the Assyrians left him to be overrun by invading nomads. Our next tyrant had some false starts, but they say the third coup is the charm. Pisistratus was a military man with designs on the Athenian government. He faked an assassination attempt against himself so convincingly that the city granted him armed bodyguards, whom he used to attempt a coup. After several attempts, Pisistratus was finally banished to a barren mountain of no value, except for its vast gold and silver mines. Now, what could an ambitious man with dreams of tyranny do with gold and silver? If you guessed, put that wealth into the stock market didn't exist yet, so wrong. But if you guessed buy an army and storm Athens to install himself as tyrant in 546 BCE, you'd be right. Pisistratus was an absolute ruler. He kept a mercenary bodyguard around him at all times, and whatever he wanted was his. But he was benevolent. He used his wealth to build aqueducts and markets, and he was a generous patron of the arts. Now, let's say you don't have a mountain of silver and gold, but you have a lot of boats. Why not become a pirate tyrant? A pirate! Polycrates was a contemporary of Pisistratus. He too was a military man who seized the island of Samos during the festival of Hera in 535 BCE. Polycrates was also a patron of the arts, but he was first and foremost a pirate admiral, fond of sending his political enemies to die in foreign excursions. That didn't work, by the way. Those rivals came back, and Polycrates had to defeat them in battle. Our pirate also abandoned an alliance with Egypt at the first glitter of Persian gold. Although according to one myth, it was the Egyptians who broke it, claiming that Polycrates was so unnaturally lucky that surely a terrible fate would befall him. The Egyptians were right. Polycrates was lured to the mainland by a Persian satrap who crucified the pirate in 522 BCE. I guess don't raid Persian supply lines and then expect them to have dinner waiting for you? Which brings us back to Athens. Hippias, the son of Pisistratus, was continuing his father's legacy of benevolent but heavily armed tyranny, until his brother Hipparchus made amorous advances towards a man named Harmodius. Harmodius said no, and Hipparchus took that with all the grace of a powerful and horny man. Bing bang boom, and in 514 BCE, Harmodius and his lover Aristogeiton were murdering Hipparchus in the city square. In response, Hippias calmly decides that what the city needs is the tender heel of a steel boot. Exiles, executions, the works. His tyranny is so vicious that Sparta intervenes and deposes Hippias in 510 BCE. Skipping ahead a bit, we get Dionysius I of Syracuse. He achieved military fame against Carthage, self-reported an assassination attempt, was granted a bodyguard, and used that bodyguard to seize control of Syracuse in 405 BCE. Sound familiar, Pisistratus? Only this guy's plan worked the first time. Dionysius builds Syracuse into a Mediterranean powerhouse by devastating his enemies and giving their lands to his mercenaries. He tried to be a patron of literature, but has notably bad taste. Dionysius is eventually deposed by the Carthaginians. After that tangent, we are back in Athens and things are bad. In 405 BCE, a victorious Sparta was in charge, and they installed the 30 tyrants. Just to be crystal clear, that is 30 guys all ruling at once, and the only thing they agreed on was who to kill next. The tyrants began a purge that kills 5% of Athenian citizens and expels thousands of moderates. In 404 BCE, those citizens returned home armed. They defeated the tyrant's army and restored the city's democracy. To recap, once upon a time a tyrant was just an absolute ruler, but tyrants only have a 1 in 33 chance of being benevolent, so most people knew tyrants as cruel and oppressive. I mean, they almost all swooped power atop a wave of violence and demagoguery, so it shouldn't surprise us when they maintain that in office. It is June 14th, 2024, and you're alive. See you later.